And I'm Jim DeBrizzo from the Core Newsletter and website.
And pessimist extraordinaire.
Yeah, I was pretty optimistic last week.
That's good.
I'm just an ordinary guy, not really from anywhere, not going anywhere, no destination. I'm Tom Combetti, as always.
Poison fan, Tom Combetti.
Extreme Poison fan, whatever the hell that means.
Well, as you can tell, Brian's not with us this week. We sent him to WWF headquarters to slap around the writers for a little bit.
Actually, I thought he was reviewing the movie Planet of the Apes. You know, one of his favorite movies, I might add.
He's dodging live ammo right now, considering where he's really at.
Oh, God.
But what, Titan Towers?
Either
They
way.
don't call it that anymore. But
He's in Guam.
we expect Brian back with us next week. If you want to talk about next week's show a little bit now.
Yeah, sure.
We have a special movie edition of Pro Wrestling Review next week. We take a look at such wrestling-oriented movies as No Holds Barred, Suburban Commando, and the latest flick from David Arquette, Ready to Rumble, which, of course, these movies were awful, but we're going to have a little fun with them next week. We review them, and we're going to show you some clips and things like that. I think there's one scene where Hogan attacks somebody and he pees his pants. Not Hogan, the guy he attacks.
No, he sat on the WWF ice cream bar, as I alluded to in the movie show. But like you said, we try our hand with wrestling every week, and we try, people. We really try. So now we thought we'd try something different with the movies, and we hope you like it. That is next week, which, as I said last week, it was like 2 years from now. But that is right here.
And 2
You
weeks
hear it
after
first.
that, and 2 weeks after that, I understand we're doing actual movies.
Oh, really?
That would be fun.
I didn't get that memo, but
Wow.
we're doing
Bruce
it.
Dickinson was still talking about it.
Actually,
Still
even
kicking that around.
even next week's movie show, the rants are going to be a little different. We actually tackle one of our favorite movies, so to speak, and really rip into it about why it sucked. But again, you guys will see that next week. But before we talk about Raw and some of the events that happened this week, we wanted to address something on this show about something that happened last Saturday on an IWC show. Apparently, Bubba the Bulldog had a few unkind remarks to say about this program and this show, and maybe some of the members of this panel. I reviewed SmackDown from Pittsburgh a few weeks ago, and I said about Bubba's match with Corey Kay that, the match pretty much sucked, and I guess Bubba took offense to it. So I don't know what's up with Bubba, and he was a former guest on this show, so I guess we thought we had a good relationship with him, but apparently that's not the case anymore.
Perhaps just a misunderstanding, maybe. I don't know how hard you were on him on the SmackDown review, but hopefully we get him on the show, we'll clear the air and put everything behind us.
Yeah, actually, probably for the new season, we're going to look to invite Bubba to the show and maybe see what his take was on the whole, I guess you could call it the SmackDown incident with his dark match. It's not anything new for the WWF. There's PWX and different kind of matches on dark matches when they're in Pittsburgh. So, hopefully we can clear this up with Bubba and, continue working with him in, some form.
I'm sorry, but I'm just going to say Bubba No Stranger. I think probably his third dark match from when WWF TV has been in town. I believe so, anyway.
Yeah.
So he's no stranger to that. But.
Well, as you alluded to, Rennie, hopefully we will have him on in the upcoming weeks, hopefully for the new PWR season coming up, probably, I would say the first week in September. I'm no good with dates. So hopefully the first week in September we'll have Bubba on, maybe clear the air here, get all these wrinkles ironed out. So we can only
Good
hope for the
analogy,
best.
by the way.
What?
That was a good analogy.
Iron out the wrinkles?
Iron out the wrinkles.
That's probably the oldest analogy in the world. Next to the...
It works. It gets the job done, and that's important.
I got the job done. That's all we can ask for, Jim.
Okay, we killed enough time, I think.
Okay, let's go into Raw, which I really don't want to anyway.
Yeah, Raw was kind of one of those shows after a few, 3 or 4 good shows from the WWF and the writing team. You kind of got a show last Monday on Raw. There wasn't much to talk about. The best way to describe it would be uneventful. I think the writers went into last Monday's show with really nothing to do, and it showed. They had a lot of comedy skits and maybe 25 minutes worth of actual wrestling. I don't know what you guys thought, but I thought it just was a total overkill with the vignettes and the backstage skits.
Well, maybe I think it was, to some degree, it was overkill. You had a lot of time with Austin and Jeff Hardy, Matt Hardy, whoever. A lot of time with Booker T, which
I
I
thought those Hardys confused.
They both suck. But I know a lot of time with Booker T, I thought that helped him. I think that's something you had to do with Booker T, but we'll get into that later. I think as a whole, the show wasn't all that bad as you think. I think this is what happens when you run into a problem, and dear God, I say this every freaking week, when you rush through stories. You're going to have a show where Angle and Jericho have to come out and wrestle the Dudleys, and it doesn't really mean all that much. It's a decent match, and it reaffirms Jericho and Angle as the faces. Kind of gives the Dudleys a little bit of a rub, but in the grand scheme of things, what does it mean?
Well, in my eyes, Raw was pretty much a mixed bag. I really didn't enjoy it. I would have enjoyed sleeping that much more for the 2 hours that Raw was on. But in my eyes, they booked the main event of The Rock versus Shane McMahon 2 weeks ago on Raw as a street fight. In my opinion, they just relied on that main event and then just, we'll throw this out here. We'll throw this comedy skit out there. You guys get out there and wrestle. We have the main event. We've planned it for 2 weeks. let the pieces fall where they may. I don't want to say let the bodies hit the floor where they may, but you understand what I'm trying to say. Which, can we get into that song, by the way?
If
Well,
you really want to.
Actually, before we touch on the let the bodies hit the floor fiasco, you brought up The Rock and Shane McMahon street fight, and that was one of the, the WWF did a good job hyping the match, and something that they've gotten away from with so much TV is the fact that you need to have announce matches and hype them over the weekend, which is what they did with this match. But that said, this match did not deliver street fight quality. I mean, you have to look at the Kurt Angle, Shane McMahon street fight from King of the Ring, and that's the measuring stick, and that's going to be the measuring stick for all street fights after it. And this one just did not cut it.
I agree with you. It was a letdown, but I think in the grand scheme of things, it was Booker T's night to some degree. You had to get Booker T out there. I think you had to end it the way they ended it. I mean, I don't know if people aren't convinced that Booker T deserves to be where he's at, but you still got to build Booker T Rock, and I think that's what you got out of it.
I just realized one of the reasons why I did not miss The Rock in his 4-month layoff when he was filming The Scorpion King, it was the fact that every match The Rock wrestles in, he has to go into the crowd and brawl up the steps. I'm so tired of that. If Austin being a heel has changed one thing about Austin, it's the fact that he doesn't go out into the crowd that long of a time. Okay, brawl right into the front where the railing is. The Rock went up and down the steps, fell, drank something, knocked some big fat guy over. And the point is, the street fight was not that good. But as you said, being a measuring stick to the King of the Ring match between Angle and Shane, I don't think that really is the bar right there. You have to exceed that. The match in general, it sucked for a street fight. It sucked as a regular match. If you're going to have a street fight,
I
go
agree
all
with it.
out.
I agree with it, and I don't think you can compare. I think Shane and Angle went too far in their match.
Possibly.
But I think they both got hurt, and no, you can't measure up to it. You shouldn't do it on Raw. You just shouldn't do it.
And the point is, the one gratuitous Shane bump at the end through the table of The Rock, that was, in my opinion, in my eyes, it was the sake of doing a high spot just for doing a high spot. Well, the show's 2 minutes away from being over. Jump through the table, put The Rock through it. Granted, maybe it was Booker T's night, got a little revenge on The Rock for saying he didn't know who the hell he was. But all in all, I think Raw sucked.
Well, we're going to come back and we're going to talk more about Raw and the Booker T acting lessons that happened on the show, so stay with us.
That's all we have. And we talk about the skits a little bit. And one skit we were discussing during the break is the whole Dallas Page, Undertaker Shrine thing.
Well, let me say this first about the Undertaker. I don't know what was wrong when he, went into Dallas Page's locker room, but he was like, and someone pointed this out to me while we were watching it, he was like a 4-year-old kid that couldn't really do any damage to anything. He didn't really do anything. He just ripped pictures down.
He was trying to rip the monitor down. I guess he couldn't do it.
Well, yeah, because it was, connected to the cable, and, he was just kind of scraping at the screen, and it was pretty pathetic, actually, if you actually watch it. But I don't know. I think something's wrong with Dallas Page. I think he probably agreed to do this kind of stuff because he thinks it might lead to him being in movies and things like that, showing his range as being a psycho. So, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but obviously they have to have the big payoff match soon.
Yeah,
SummerSlam soon.
Like last month soon.
Oh yeah, I think eventually. I don't know how they're going to end it now. I mean, they got Canyon involved in this. I don't think he fits really well against Undertaker and Kane, but I guess Dallas Page needs a sidekick.
Well, you're pushing for that payoff match. I'm hoping for a buried alive match where both guys fall in the hole simultaneously and somehow the dirt gets pushed on top of them.
I think the direction they're trying to go, they're trying to make it serious enough, obviously. I don't know if anyone's buying it anymore. But they're trying to go for Hell in a Cell.
No.
I don't know how good that will be. But,
No.
I mean, I think it's the obvious conclusion at this point.
Unless Pappy Page is going to take a bump off the top of it, I don't want to see it. It's going to be Big Boss Man Undertaker revisited.
He's
Mark
not.
my word.
I don't think it'll be that bad, but...
Well, the Boss Man got hung in the middle of the ring. Jeez.
That, actually, yeah.
Well, Page is after Undertaker's wife for storyline purposes. God only knows what the Undertaker's going to do to him. Probably carve him up in the middle of the ring.
Maybe I'm being a little superficial here, but am I the only one who sees Sarah, whatever the hell her name is, going with Page after all this?
Yeah, that'll be that. Seems like a
No, I
logical
don't,
thing.
because I don't think Sarah's any good.
I don't think Deborah's any good either, but she has a speaking role on every TV show.
We'll get into Deborah later.
The thing about Paige is, maybe I could just conclude with
Let's get into Deborah now.
I don't think Paige has it anymore. I really don't. Every match, has he even wrestled any matches in the WWF?
I don't think he
Maybe
has.
one or two. His outings thus far, brawling or whatever, have been nothing monumental by any means, not even memorable. It just, like you said, Pappy Page out there. Whether he's 50 years old, whether he looks like he's 40 and wrestles like he's 10, Paige, you don't have it anymore.
Well, let me put it this way about Diamond Dallas Page and this whole Sarah stalking angle. First of all, nobody cares about The Undertaker's wife. Thus, nobody cares about this angle because she's not a compelling enough character on television for people to go, wow, Paige is stalking her. Well, who's her and why should we care? It's a Taker's wife. You know, for all we know, 10 years ago he was married to Paul Bearer. So to me, she has no personality, and there's no reason for anybody to care about it.
Yeah, I think this is one of those stories that started off really, really good. I think Dallas Page provided a surprise. I think it's gone nowhere since then. And I think Dallas Page is, yeah, I mean, the thing you say about Sarah's right, don't get me wrong, but just, you're right, Dallas Page is just an anchor on this story.
But again, it go back to the fact that if you wanted to make this angle seem real, give Sarah a personality, even if it is only for 6 months, and to get a payoff match at the end of that.
Yeah, I guess, but
if you want to do it right.
I think you're right, but maybe she doesn't have it, and maybe they're so deep in the story now they have no alternative.
Well, you know what? Then they should Undertaker versus Page at, well, I was going to say Fully Loaded Invasion, and that should have been the end of the feud. Let them move on. Page is being, and the Undertaker for that matter, are being brought down by this story.
I agree with you, but I think then I would have disagreed. I think maybe could have gone a little longer, and I still think even at that point I thought Hell in a Cell was going to be the obvious conclusion. Whether or not it works, I don't know, but yeah, I mean the story has to end. It has to end at SummerSlam.
When it does, and hopefully Page would move on to, say, younger guys in the WWF, not in a sense putting them over, maybe a feud with Edge or Christian, or maybe even the Hardys, push them as single stars, which they've tried numerous times to do and never actually have succeeded. But Page needs to be putting, well, maybe at the end of the feud, maybe put over an Edge, put over a Christian. Him and the Undertaker are going to have a barn burner, and I mean that literally. The barn is going to burn right to the damn ground.
You're going to wrestle in a barn?
Hey, don't put it pat. I think Vince Russo booked last night's Raw.
Actually, I think along those lines, I think that's why Canyon has been brought into the story.
The guy that gets the job, basically.
Maybe. But you know what? He's up in, I hate to say upper echelon, but that's where The Undertaker is. That's where Page is perceived to be by some. It's not going to be a great match, but...
Page is perceived to be up there by himself, though. No one else but Page thinks he should be up there.
Right. Apparently the Pittsburgh crowd didn't either, right?
Who's that?
The one thing I said when Page first debuted, I said in my column that he was a good addition to the WWF, and I went on to the fact that, he would pull great matches out of people like Goldberg, who didn't have a lot of skill, and he would be someone that you could put against The Undertaker, who they're basically on the same skill level. But the WWF really hasn't done anything other than make him a sicko on TV. And the thing is, you have him go out there.
He's not a sicko, but he plays one on TV.
Right. So you have him go out there on TV, and when he actually does wrestle, he wrestles for 4 minutes, and someone runs out. I mean, it just... The guy can. I think the guy can still wrestle, but he hasn't been given.
I'm not so sure anymore.
Well,
I mean, the layout. I think toward the end of the WCW run, I think it was starting to show, and
he better start.
Maybe they're trying to hide. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
They could be trying to make up for his ability not in the ring. His fact
That's
that
what I was just. Yeah, exactly.
He's kneeling in front of pictures, licking them with candles in his eyes.
God, I was so hoping he would spill hot wax on himself just to see that reaction.
Well, are we done with Page?
I think we're done with Page.
Maybe one of the higher points of Raw last night, and there weren't many, by the way, was maybe the introduction of a Jericho-Rhino feud, probably with a match at SummerSlam. I mean, with all the comedy and stuff, there were a few bright spots of Raw, this being one of them. I don't know. Rhino's on the rise, obviously. Jericho is probably branded a mid-carder for life, for reasons beyond me. But this match should be good.
No, I wouldn't go that far. I think in this case, this is looking to elevate Rhino. I don't know how much help it's going to do with Jericho right now, but we'll see.
It's just amazing how far Jericho has fallen since King of the Ring. I mean, he basically has been wrestling the Dudley Boys on and off for the last 8 months. And
that's true, actually.
I don't understand, and this is a point that Tom brought up off camera, was the fact that why does Jericho have to wrestle the Dudley Boys every week? It always seems like it's going to be Jericho Dudley's in a handicap match because Stephanie wants him to kill Jericho, even though it's obvious they love each other and they're going to end up together. But I mean, I don't know. I think Jericho's really being wasted, and I think, if we're going to just real quickly touch on the Dudleys, I think there's another group of guys that WWF has done absolutely nothing with since they put women through tables like a year ago. They have been the most uncompelling characters on TV the WWF's had in a while.
Real quick, as we edge out of the segment, it looks like there's a lot of guys who have lost a lot of momentum, and there's a lot of guys not doing a whole lot right now on both sides.
Well, we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit about SummerSlam and some more events from Raw, so come back.
Leading up to SummerSlam. Actually, the song is the event leading up to SummerSlam, which we saw for WrestleMania. It was Limp Bizkit's My Way, which isn't a bad song. It's debatable.
No, it sucks.
I realize, Jim. What's better, though? What's better, this offering now or Limp Bizkit for WrestleMania?
I'm going to excuse myself from this.
That's a tough one. I don't know. Well, introduce a song, then we'll debate who's better and who's worse.
Well, stand ready, I guess you could say. The song for this year's SummerSlam, which you don't already know what it is anyway. You're under a rock. is what the hell's the song
But
called?
the bodies hit the floor.
Thank you, Jim.
Which I'm not sure what
Probably
that has to do with wrestling.
The worst song this side of Snow's Informer, as far as many moons ago.
In Living Color, the old TV show did a great parody.
Why do I feel like I'm in the back room of Camelot music?
If you ever see old Living Color, you gotta see that. You gotta see that parody of what they do with Snow.
Oh yeah, I did see
Such a talented guy. I haven't heard anything from him.
I think the lyrics went something like, "In 4 months, I'll be in a Burger King cat." Now get back to this Fred Durst thing. Let me talk about Fred Durst for a couple seconds.
No, you can post it on your website.
The
if you feel so compelled as to rip on Fred Durst.
Actually, I did.
Yeah, I know. I saw.
I ripped on Destiny's Child too, and I got ripped for it on Tom's page. I really don't know what that's about.
Okay, well.
Who the hell likes Destiny's Child that watches our show? And if you do like Destiny's Child, please don't watch our show because we don't like it.
Yeah, we don't like you either, so there you go.
But the thing is, maybe I'm taking this song thing a little too far, but the song absolutely blows. It really does. I think I said the same thing last week, but I mean it this week that much more.
It sucks, but the kids love it, so that's all you need to hear.
What's the song about? Is it in
Bodies
a
hit the floor?
Is it
It's like every other modern song in the music industry today. Limp Biscuit.
Does it
about
take
how
place
bad they are and
Does
how
it take
messed up
place
they
in a
are.
morgue?
I don't know. I don't listen to it.
I think it's in a dentist's office if you look at that guy with the missing teeth that they're screaming in his ear.
I assume there's a psychological undertone to it as well.
They're not that intelligent, Jim. Let's be honest. It's
Yeah,
just,
only
it's
Judas
just
Priest can put the
screaming.
nonchalant lyrics in that make people kill people,
true.
which actually didn't happen. But the WWF, I guess, liked the song so much, they gave it to Stephanie McMahon to use. Even better.
No, they didn't like the song. It was cheap to get a hold of. Let's clarify that this band is nothing, and hopefully will stay
Yeah,
nothing.
it will be nothing. But
you know, they probably paid them about $30 to get this song. I mean, this band is not worth
Damn
more.
it, we should have got it for our opening theme. We have that money.
Yeah.
But no, it's a popular song right now. I didn't like My Way or The Highway either, but it's popular. The kids love it. The kids go nuts.
Us old fogies, though, we don't like it.
Yeah. Well, SummerSlam in 1998 featured AC/DC's Highway to Hell, and that
A classic, obviously.
to me, I mean, I think that song went a long way to promote Undertaker versus Austin back then.
Which the match absolutely was no good anyway.
Right. Let's go back to the song though. I mean, I think that maybe enticed a lot
They
of
had a
people.
video clip too, as I recall.
Yeah.
Undertaker walking through a street where it was blowing up. apparently there's a bombing rate or something. I don't know.
Did you notice when Austin was walking through the streets, where they have no name and they were also on fire? He was so bloated beyond hell that the vest was actually hanging off his gut. I don't understand what that was all
You just
about.
made a YouTube reference, by the way.
I realize that.
Anyway,
Where the streets have no name and are blowing up.
now that this VH1 segment has taken shape, we're going to talk now about the actual SummerSlam card. As of this
All
taping,
3 matches.
As of this taping, we only know 3 matches. Actually, 2 have been announced. Why don't we start with the main event? Steve Austin defends his WWF title against Kurt Angle. We talked a little bit last week about whether or not Kurt Angle's ready to main event a pay-per-view with somebody like Austin. I think the answer is obvious. I think Kurt Angle has been ready, and I think he'll do fine in this main event.
Yeah, and here's another thing from the fouls that we're always tired of being right. We also mentioned last week that it should be Angle Austin, it should be Booker T Rock. That's why you come here to watch the show every week.
Listen to you go over there.
I'm just tired of being
Fred
right.
Durst sucks and we're awesome. That's great.
Get a whoa, Fred Durst.
Yeah, okay, I'll get right on that.
Let's throw in a prediction here. Angle Austin, who wins?
That's tough because, I mean...
I don't think so.
No, I think it's tougher than you think because, I mean, Angle's one of those characters on TV. He's been compelling in the last few weeks. And, Kurt Angle, obviously, he's becoming the WWF's top babyface despite what The Rock thinks. So, I mean, it's a tough call. I mean, I guess Austin retains, but...
I think Austin retains. I think it's no secret what's happening at Survivor Series.
I would say Austin retaining is the way to go. But as far as Angle becoming the top babyface in the company, it's humorous to me the fact that he's doing the same interview he was a year ago to generate heat, to get the crowd to hate him with the Pledge of Allegiance and stuff. Well, he didn't do the Pledge of Allegiance a year ago, but things along those lines. Now the crowd's chanting along with him.
Well,
what's wrong with America?
It's
Well,
all
it's
about
certainly
perception. It's how Angle's character is being perceived and how it's being presented.
He was on the good side. And, I mean, obviously the Pittsburgh crowd that played a big role. I mean, not obviously that wasn't a turning point, but I think it helped. He started turning face and ended up in Pittsburgh a couple weeks later.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that. I mean, you can look back at
Coincidence, I'm sure.
When Chris Benoit was healthy and they had the Raws in Edmonton and Calgary, that did a lot, I think, for Chris Benoit to be pushed as a babyface. So, there's a lot to be said for actually performing in front of your home crowd because maybe people watch it and see, well, this is how we're supposed to react to this guy. But, I don't know. I can see what you mean, Tom, about him doing the Pledge of Allegiance and still acting corny a little bit. But, I mean, I guess it's just the way he's being presented now on TV.
Not even so much it's a bad thing. It's funny to me that people are buying it now. Where
fans are fickle.
Well, he's always been funny to some degree. I think.
Oh, he's hilarious in a subtle way.
More than the heel side, and he's not. I mean, let's face it. He's also not playing up a heel as much.
Right.
I mean, you can still see the subtleties of his heel character back then.
Oh, and we have that other pesky match, which I think The Rock's going to... Did he leave again yet?
No, not yet. But before we get to that, I wanted to point out Steve Austin's character. You know, he's been kind of dormant the last few weeks, fighting over whether or not Deborah or he is going to slide the cookie tray into the oven. But, I don't know where they came up with this and why they thought it would be a good idea to have Deborah as being a main character on TV. But what were you thinking?
I said that like 6 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you credit. You did say Deborah was pretty much worthless, other than the fact that she's married to the most influential guy on the roster.
I think my exact words were, "It's a good thing she knows how to marry."
Well,
I'd like to add a clarification to that. She does have a role on TV only if she's bombed or plowed. Obviously, not in the context I mean. Give her a couple of drinks so she can come out and do ring announcing again. That's the context I mean before this gets out of the way here. When she called Edge by his real name when he won the match, that was classic stuff. Give her a couple brandies. Give her a couple bourbons.
Speaking of giving someone some bourbons, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about Rock versus Booker T at SummerSlam.
Yeah. It's obligatory. It's gratuitous. I had to do it.
It's all right.
So, we're down one
Poison
member
song?
this week. What's that?
Is that a Poison song?
You really don't know, do you?
No, I don't.
Yeah, it is. Well, not the pro wrestling trivia part, but the first part, yeah. So, like I said, we're down one member this week, so Rennie, do your best.
I will. Question number 1. Name 3 movies that Hulk Hogan starred in. The winning, ballot, you could say, said Santa with Muscles, Mr. Nanny, and Bourbon Commando, but we gave him credit for Suburban Commando because, like we said last time, you have to have a lot of bourbon in you to watch the movie. But question number 2. Name 3 movies that Roddy Piper starred in, and there's been a lot of them. There's definitely something to be said for flipping through the channels and seeing a softcore porn movie with Roddy Piper in it with his bare ass pressed up against the shower door. But anyway, I'm sorry.
Know this?
It's bad. He made lots of really bad movies. But anyway, They Live, Hell Comes to Frogtown, and Body Slam. Question 3. Name the soon-to-be-released movie starring The Rock. It's called The Scorpion King. We all hope it does so well at the box office. We're just waiting. Question number 4 from last week's show. Who was Ricky Steamboat's partner at Clash of the Champions when he returned and won the tag team titles? The answer was Dustin Rhodes. This week's winner is Jesse Forney from Glassport. Jim, do Brian's honors. Don't say carbonated beverage because that's copyrighted by him.
Right.
Tell him what he's
won.
won.
He had a gun in my head last week. Well, Jesse, you win some Pizza Works. One large pizza with 1 topping, a dozen wings, and a 2-liter bottle of soda, which once you get the coupon, you can redeem it at the DeVosburg Pizza Works, right over the bridge.
And this week's question is, when Booker T and Stevie Ray, remember them? Well, remember Stevie Ray anyway. When they first entered WCW, I believe in the early 90s, what were their original names? That question again, Booker T and Stevie Ray, what were their original names when they first entered WCW? And tell the people what they have to do.
You have to. Oh, go ahead, Jim.
Oh, thank you. Go to Pro Wrestling Review, click on Trivia, mail that to Pro Wrestling Review at Lycos.com, and for the love of God, please include your name and address. Please, I'm begging here. I'm done.
Well, you got the question, you got the instructions, you know what the prize is, so go to it, people. Good luck.
Is 2 weeks from now. The other main event match is Booker T versus The Rock, who is fresh off the Scorpion King set and back in the WWF. We talked a little bit earlier about Booker T and some of the skits that he was doing on Raw, but this is one of those matches that a lot of people are debating about simply because a lot of people think that The Rock's going to go into SummerSlam and pretty much wipe the mat with Booker T, and that, of course, brings in the discussion of whether or not that's going to kill Booker T's credibility and WCW/ECW's as well. I don't know what you guys think about this match and how it should be handled, but I think the WWF maybe should go out on a limb and have Booker T score a win.
I wouldn't mind that. I don't think it's going to happen. I think you got to do what you can to make Booker T look very strong here because, well, I'll talk about it in my rant later a little more about Booker T, but no, you can't. I mean, if somehow Austin wins, well, not somehow Austin wins, Austin's going to win. I think if Rock wins the main event, I think that'll be the last match of the show. Obviously, everyone goes home happy, yada, yada, yada. But yeah, you got to make Booker T look strong here. I mean, you got to give him some time to do both of those guys to do their thing, and hopefully Booker T comes out of it stronger.
Well, I mean, I know that and you know that, but the fact of the matter is, The Rock will probably give him the rock bottom 2 minutes in, win the match. It would be great to have a retirement match.
You can't do that, though.
They should have a retirement match between the two at SummerSlam.
How about loser can't do the bookend anymore, or the rock bottom, or whatever?
Yeah, the bookend versus the Rock bottom. I didn't even think of that. But you say about the Rock, he is off a 4-month layoff, and I mean he didn't look bad in the ring this past Monday on Raw. What he did was very bad, though. I mean he obviously has his timing still.
Conditioning wise,
He was fine. Like he didn't miss a beat. But Booker T does need to look strong. Maybe a Booker T win's not needed here at this point. But he does need a strong showing against The Rock.
Like you said,
I think Booker T needs to steal the show, honestly, to some degree.
Well, there's two
Maybe
things.
he can order the show. I don't know about stealing it.
There's two things that WWF can do to probably, I don't want to say ensure Booker T getting some credibility, but one, have the Rock Booker T match be last. I know that seems like it's very, picky, but fans will perceive that, Booker T and The Rock is the main event. And I think I can, let a Rock win slip by if, like Tom said, Booker T goes out, they wrestle for 20 minutes, Booker T looks strong, Rock wins, after maybe a second Rock bottom or something like that. But you can't have these guys go out for 8 minutes, have The Rock completely no-sell Booker T's offense, and then pin Booker T. And then, to me, that the feud's over then after that.
Well, maybe a Booker T loss in this case would prompt his face turn, which you've went on record many times. Booker T is better as a face. He doesn't have any heel tendencies. It's proven.
I don't think it's the right time for that right now. I think there's. I think Monday Night proved they're trying to develop his face, his heel persona a little bit, the arrogant side, and I would like to see it go on some more, quite honestly.
Well, obviously that's granted, but if you have Booker T lose in this match, who can you really match him up with against the WWF? Okay, he lost to The Rock. Granted, you can't have him wrestle an Angle. The Rock beat him. Angle beat him. Well, Booker T beat Angle. You know what I mean?
He doesn't. I think he'd go against, honestly. I think you get a feud out of that. Maybe they show up at Survivor Series, or I don't know. Maybe you have another group thing going on Survivor Series, and Booker T leads it. Then maybe after Survivor Series, if something costs Booker T the match, then you can turn him.
I would say Booker T's credibility lies not in the win or loss in this match. It's how the pace of it goes, how much offense he gets, and how he looks against The Rock. I mean, obviously The Rock's a superstar. He's a main eventer in the WWF. Booker T's on the verge of it, I think, now. The comedy thing this past Monday on Raw, it would have been better, I think, maybe if it was just one skit. They went back and forth and back and forth. It was funny. It had its times, but it also had its down times.
Well, yeah, and I think the last segment that they showed from that, acting vignette was Booker T slapped the pseudo director, and then the one girl ran across
and hugged the other girl.
That was bad. I mean, that was awful.
Here's another thing I want to add in. Yeah, we talked. Maybe it was a little too much time for Booker T, but it was like when Dallas Page revealed himself to be a stalker.
Gotta bring him up again.
I'm sorry, but yeah, he got a little too much time. I think maybe they were testing Dallas Page then. I think maybe they were testing Booker T Monday night. I think he passed. I think he passed from what he did Monday night attacking The Rock. I think he's almost there. I think SummerSlam is the test, and I think he'll come through it.
I don't think there's any question that Booker T can hold his own with The Rock.
Yeah, but he's still got to prove it. He's still got. He's still. I'm really getting into a lot of my rant topics here, but he's still got to adjust a little bit more to the WWF stuff. I think you saw a little bit at the end of Raw Monday night. He was a little bit off of I think what the WWF wants him to do, as opposed to what he did. Maybe it's nitpicking. Maybe there's no problem at all. Yeah. But he's getting there. I mean, he's on the verge.
Well, one other match that we want to talk about that we think is going to be at SummerSlam, because they've only announced 2 matches as of this taping, like we said earlier. Chris Jericho is going to be taking on Rhino. What can you say about this match? I mean, it got some build-up last Monday. These two have kind of been feuding. Jericho has to split his time between the Dudleys and Rhino because he's a very busy man. This match was kind of been, perceived to happen at SummerSlam. I think Jericho won the hardcore title and Rhino gored him, and then Rhino won the hardcore title. This is leading up to, of course, Jericho fighting for the world title at King of the Ring. But, I don't know. It's hard to say who should go over in this match, because I think Jericho loses a little bit of credibility every time he doesn't win the world title, or every time he doesn't look strong in a world title match. And I think Rhino, like you said, Tom, is one of those guys that's slowly moving his way toward the top tier. So this is kind of more or less a pick 'em.
Well, I don't know. Jericho seems like his storylines are in main event style storylines, but his matches are against mid-carders. And I'm not saying Rhino's a mid-carder by any means.
No,
but
he is. No, he is.
He was on the
I
Alliance
just didn't want to say that, though.
Invasion, Jim.
You understand what I'm saying, though? He'll come out and cut a monologue with Stephanie McMahon, but yet he'll wrestle like a Bob Holly. It doesn't seem right to me.
Well, I disagree with Ernie a little bit. Jericho wins this match. There's no reason to put Rhino over at this position. He's still on the rise. I think Jericho will be hurt more if he loses.
But what does a win do for Jericho? He's obviously the WWF's obviously shown.
That's the problem with putting him in the ring with Rhino. Rhino's not there yet where a win's going to help Jericho, and even looking strong for Rhino is going to help him.
Well, my point is the WWF obviously has shown that they're not interested in pushing Chris Jericho as a main eventer. The guy's had, so many chances to show that he's a world title contender. Of course, last year's epic battles with Triple H on TV and at the Fully Loaded pay-per-view. But I don't think a win over Rhino. Like I said, taking nothing away from Rhino, who's done a lot to silence the critics when he was in ECW. But
I'll admit it, I was wrong.
right, but the thing of it is, I don't think a win for Jericho really means that much against Rhino, who has yet to score a big victory of his own other than a pinfall win over Jericho.
Well, we'll agree to disagree.
Well, in addition to
like
the
that.
3 matches on SummerSlam and the really cool song, we recommend you not buying it. That's
Yeah.
the
We do.
PWR's advice to you fans. The song just kills it alone. So,
That's true.
you want me to take it out here?
Take
I don't
it
think I've
out.
ever done that. We'll be back. We're going to talk about something next segment. We're still undecided. So, stay tuned. And we're going to try something a little different this week. We've done it before. I think we did it. I don't want to say we did it with Van Damme, but we did something along
We
the lines.
discussed the Van Damme situation.
Absolutely. We
that's
discussed his
good, I like
character, where he's going in the WWF, where he should go, how he's doing, judges' performance. So the 2 celebrity profiles this week are, let's get a draw. Thank you,
Oh,
Jim.
that sucked. I'm sorry.
Well, it was close enough. Mike Awesome and Lance Storm. So, well, please submit your essays to me when you're done, and I'll read them on the air for
Well,
everybody to tell.
Here's 2 guys I thought made a pretty good team in WCW, and I thought were making a pretty good team in the WWF, but for whatever reason, Mike Austin's been de-emphasized, and I think he's running one of our cameras right now.
There's been a couple posts on the internet, and I know that is the Bible when it comes to valid news and things of that sort. But that Mike Awesome has kind of fallen out of grace with some of the WWF officials for whatever reason. He's too talented, too tall, too muscular, too athletic. Be that as it may, there's a guy who could be a monster heel, and the WWF always they preach you have to be able to cut a promo, see Jerry Lynn. But there's always managers, and I realize that might be an outdated reference and an outdated thing right now in wrestling, but for someone as talented as Mike Awesome, you need to have that guy out there somewhere. The last time I saw him, he lost to Hardcore Holly on Heat. And I was befuddled.
I don't know. Maybe there was an attitude problem. I mean, obviously, when he left ECW, it wasn't a good situation. Maybe Paul Heyman's influence. I don't know. Unless it's a pure 100% attitude problem with Mike Awesome, which there's been no evidence to say that, you can't do this with Mike Awesome. I mean, I think he's too talented. Yeah, you're right. Personality, he needs a lot of work. But there's Stacy Keibler and Tori Wilson. I mean, granted, they're not great, but
Well, I mean,
you can put a wrestler with them.
oh, I thought you meant as far as having a personality, Stacy Keibler and Tori
Well, no, I
Wilson.
mean, but they at least can get through an interview better than Mike Awesome.
Well, you have like an Edge and Christian, guys who before Edge joined Christian, joined the Brood or whatnot, Edge was very bland. I don't think he maybe said 2 words, and it was I was a tortured soul. They put him with Christian, and they played off of each other. They drug stuff out of each other that they never knew existed, and we never knew existed as fans. Maybe Lance Storm's not the person to do that with Mike Awesome. Lance Storm's very bland also, and I realize that's part of his character. Mike Awesome, the sky's the limit, as the old saying goes. Another analogy, I guess you could say. But the thing is, I don't know if there's any backstage politics anymore, but Awesome is probably one of the best big guys. I don't mean to keep interrupting
that's
you.
all right.
Maybe that would have something to do with it. I mean, his upside is tremendous. Maybe.
I don't necessarily buy into what you said about Lance Storm. I don't think they play off each other in the classical sense of Edge and Christian, but they had good chemistry together. I think they made a very good team. I mean, I think their talent alone and the chemistry they had made them a potentially great team in the ring.
But I think we've learned from Chuck Palumbo and Sean O'Hare that 2 guys put together with there's nothing between them. There's no rapport between them, and that's why Chuck Palumbo and Sean O'Hare are never going to go anywhere. Not that they're not talented. I've said before that Chuck Palumbo has improved vastly over the last few months, but you got to have 2 guys that can play off of each other well, or as in the Dudley Boys case, do that and wear the same clothes. So. But
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
no, but you know what I mean, though.
Yeah, right.
Like from the old kind of tag teams in the '80s, like Legion of Doom, Demolition. They wore the same thing, they looked the same, and that's how you got that.
But the thing with Lance Storm is, and we might as well get into him right now, he's not a slouch on the mic.
I thought he did very well against Kurt
he's
Angle
good.
on SmackDown.
I think he's good on the mic. I mean, you guys may not like the I'm from Canada spiel. I like it. I think it's funny. His facial expressions and the way he delivers it cracks me up every time I hear it.
I think Bret Hart pretty much threw up on the whole Canadian gimmick with, I'm a Canadian hero. I think that's what turns me off of it a little bit. But, the line's okay. I mean, it's a good way to get him over, but you have to move past that eventually.
Eventually, you're right. And I think they do got to develop him. I think you'll see it in this Edge feud. Maybe you'll see Edge and Lance Storm at SummerSlam. But every time he says it, if I can be serious for a minute, it gets crowdy, and it works. And I think maybe after that you don't say I'm from Canada, and then have him interrupted when the Canadian national anthem is playing. That's a mistake WCW made. But yeah, you can develop on that, and I think Lance Storm has enough of a deadpan personality to do that.
If there was anything, I'm just going to bring this up real quick, good about the old WCW, I mean when Turner owned it, when they were actually a company in and of itself, was the fact that guys could get over from work rate alone. Look at Sean O'Hare. He barely touched the mic. He was getting over with the crowd, then they sold the company. Mike Awesome was the same way. In ECW, he was over. He killed people in ECW. That's why he was over. The WWF's a different place. Yeah, you can kill guys and do innovative spots like Tajiri and get over. Well, Tajiri has a character too. But the point is, if you can't talk, you're not going to get over in the WWF, which is a shame.
But there's, even with Mike Awesome, there's no reason to have him being dominated by Bob Holly on Heat. Not in this time frame. I mean, nothing against Bob Holly. I mean, I think there could have been a feud work there. I just don't understand, Mike. I don't understand it.
It's kind of surprising when you think about Vince McMahon's history with and how he perceives guys who have great builds. From superstar Billy Graham to Scott Steiner. Vince McMahon, he just he marks out, I guess you could say, for muscular build. So it's kind of interesting and confusing why Mike Awesome doesn't have a prominent role. But if you go back again to what WCW tried to do with him and put him in a leisure suit and make him come out and have his own segment, I think that really kind of went over everybody's head. I think people, mainly from ECW fans, see Mike Awesome as the kind of guy who's big, athletic. And if you look at the WWF right now, I don't think you can really look at any particular group, whether it be main eventers, mid-carders, that Mike Awesome, I don't think he really fits in anywhere. And that's not to say he doesn't belong there, but who's he going to wrestle? Who's he going to wrestle and wrestle his style is what I'm saying.
Well,
there's no JT Smiths anymore to just break his back and go to the back.
Interesting. That's an interesting point. But obviously, you have to put him in the ring with somebody who can take his moves. Obviously, it has to be someone bigger. I don't know if Kane. Obviously, Kane's too high profile, but Kane can, I think, take.
I think that's a feud right there. I don't know why.
There's Albert sitting around doing nothing. I mean, I don't like Albert either, but he can take it. I mean, in fact, Albert, who just
did you call Fat Albert?
No, I didn't. Albert, who recently press slammed Hugh Morris, which I was remarkably impressed by that. Awesome can take some of his high impact offense. Put these guys in the ring and let's see what they can do. There's too many guys right now. Mike Awesome, we can go on. There's too many guys that are doing nothing right now.
The thing is, when the WWF was choosing, I'm just going to add this real quick here before we go out to break. When they were choosing a stalker, they picked Dallas Page, obviously. Why not a Mike Awesome? Page was, dare I say, over enough with the crowd. People knew who he was. He was a star. Maybe Awesome wouldn't have been the big payoff that Page was, even though in my eyes it wasn't that big of a payoff. But it just seems like there's more substance if Mike Awesome would have been placed in a storyline like that with stalking the Undertaker's wife. He could drag good matches out of the Undertaker.
Yeah,
he'd have a feud with Kane.
I think you need a mouthpiece with that. Maybe Dallas Page would have come in that point.
Yeah, but who couldn't say, I'm going to kill your wife, I'm going to stalk her? The thing is, Page is going to have a heart attack and die in the ring, where Mike Awesome is young, and he could have good matches with both the Undertaker and Kane, so let's go.
Well, I think the consensus of this panel is that Mike Awesome's definitely being underutilized, but we're going to come back and we're going to do our world-famous rants minus Brian, so please come back.
Cut in his rant last week. If you didn't enjoy Booker T's segment, antics, whatever, you're not a wrestling fan. I'm sorry. Booker T is on the verge of something here, and I think it's on the verge of superstardom. I mean, we talked about maybe he's better as a face as a heel, but I think right now WWF wants him as a heel. I think what you saw this Monday night, he took great strides becoming the arrogant heel that they need him to be. I think in the ring, he's taken more strides to become the heel style, and like I said, Booker T is on the verge of superstardom. All he needs is time right now. He needs time at SummerSlam. He needs a good showing against The Rock. And he just needs the time to develop, and I think he's going to be there. Now, everyone talks about Lance Storm. Everyone talks about Rob Van Dam and building the new WCW around him. Yeah, those guys are good building blocks, and believe me, I have no disagreement with that. Booker T is going to be the man you build a new WCW around. You have to do it. You should do it. And because the main reason for that is Booker T is ready. And he's on the verge of superstardom, and he's going to be a star in this business, bigger than anything he ever was before. So give Booker T the time at SummerSlam, give him a good showing. He doesn't have to win right away, but just give him the time. He'll be ready for it.
You can end your rant with sucka. Sucker about that.
I got your lock at sucka. Can we have that on the show next week?
Sure.
That's a great segment.
Even though it's the movie show, but
No.
Well, one of the things we didn't talk about from this past week's Raw was that Ivory came back, and I know everybody was shocked and stunned to see her not in an RTC dress. But she came back and she interfered during the Tori Stacy Keibler handicap match with Jackie. And it was one of those things where Ivory, I guess, joined WCW. It would have meant a little bit more had Ivory been introduced on TV maybe a few weeks ago. But, you just look at it and you go, who cares? I mean, that's what I took from it. But I'm going to do something a little different when I rant about women's wrestling. I'm not going to do it the way my fair-weathered friend here usually does. I'm going to look at it from the aspect that I think the women's division, if you even can say there is one, should pretty much be treated like the midgets and anything else the WWF brings in once in a while. I think women's wrestling, even more so than professional wrestling, is cyclical. I think that people like Lita and Trish will do just fine. Maybe Lita doing her Hurricanrana spot, maybe Trish doing, whatever it is she does. And it's obvious that the WWF is not interested in women's wrestling as, the actual wrestling part of it, because they sent their best worker, Molly Holly, down to Ohio Valley Wrestling. So to me, I think the WWF's pretty much set in the fact that, people like Tori, Stacy, and everything, and Lita, and all the other women should just be more as valets, and I guess you can say eye candy if you want to use that tiresome cliche. But I mean, I'm just not one of these people that cares what Aja Kong is doing. I don't care that Medusa, Alundra Blaze, whatever her name is still waiting in Sturgis for WCW to pick her up. I just don't care. And I think you got a taste of that last Monday on Raw when you watched the match between Jackie, Stacy, and Tori. It was an awful match. It was just one of those matches that you wish, if you weren't recording the show, you could change the channel. Taking nothing away from Jackie, who is a good worker, but it's one of those things where if you're not going to put women out there that can wrestle, then don't bother and just let them do something else, whether it be one-spot moves like Lita or just being a valet for somebody.
I had the honor and pleasure this past Monday of watching a tape one of my friends ordered. It was, I believe it was the best of Roddy Piper, including Piper's Pit. Now, the Piper's Pit segments were wonderful. They were at a time when wrestlers were just wrestlers. They didn't really talk. All they did was go out there and lose. They could be working at an A&P, at a Giant Eagle, or whatnot. You wouldn't even know they were wrestlers. They were just big, tall, dumb, clumsy, what have you. Roddy Piper did something different back then. He had guys on there either embarrassing them or advancing his own character. What he did was great. Some notable guests he had were, Frank Williams, I believe, where he beat the living hell out of him with a microphone and ripped his little singlet off. Cyndi Lauper, people of that sort. Paul Orndorff, Cowboy Bob Orton was a mainstay on it. The segments were great. They were short. People liked them. Now, my question to the fans out there and to the WWF, because I know you watch every week religiously, could you maybe benefit from skits, segments, Piper's Pit, stuff like that again? My one example, and this is kind of a crappy example, I like it, but you get the point. Have Jerry Lynn host a Headbangers Ball on the WWF. Have cool metal posters on the wall. Have Jerry talk to people, talk to wrestlers. Maybe you'll bring something out. The point of the matter is, with these skits and these little segment types, Piper developed a character over years. He was one of the most hated heels and one of the most loved baby faces, not thanks to Hulk Hogan by any means. And Piper's Pit helped him accomplish that with his character. And the thing is, maybe a Headbangers Ball with Jerry Lynn wouldn't be the best idea, but you would develop a character, you would develop a brand for Jerry Lynn, and then he could go on, because the only way they're going to get over is if they have characters, not the fact that Jerry Lynn's one of the best workers in the world, but he would have a character. And then after that's over, maybe come up with a new segment. The Flower Shop, Adrian Adonis, that was wonderful. That Snake Pit, I believe it was called, with Jake Roberts.
Just don't even go there.
Where Jake actually got drunk and fell in that little pit with the snake one time. But my point to the WWF, and maybe I'm wrong here, maybe they could stand to use maybe a little refreshing, maybe a Piper's Pit or two, something of that sort. So take heed. And Michael Cole sucks. The obligatory reference.
One of the things when you brought up Ace Cowboy Bob Orton, the man with more names than anyone else I've ever met, or I didn't actually meet him, but one of the things about Bob Orton, you take a guy who teamed with Piper, and Orton, I think, on his own wouldn't have been anything.
No, he was the sidekick to Piper, and that's how he got over.
Right, that's what made him. That and the cast, of course. But if you want to read my column, you can pick it up on the newsstands tomorrow, or you can read it on the web. It's www.triblive.com/sports.
Check us out on the internet. It's ProWrestlingReview.com, and I'm going to rip into Fred Durst like you wouldn't believe this week. Also, enter the trivia. Click on trivia. Mail it to ProWrestlingReview@lycos.com. Name and address. Tom, hit him with that question again.
Before I hit him with that, Jim, you realize he directed the Stain video.
Don't talk to me ever again.
Take heed. Anyway, the question again, when Booker T and Stevie Ray debuted for WCW, what were their original names? Not a hard question here. Check a PWI almanac. Ask me. I don't care. Answer the three on the website. Answer this. Name and address, please, God. No phone number. We don't call people anymore. But send those, ProWrestlingReview.com. You'll find everything there. And what else do I do? I'm kind of at a loss
movie
because
show.
Brian's gone.
Movie shows
you-
next week. Stay tuned for the new season in September.
Can I say this now? You want to feed me lines?
No, I
Or?
think you're done, actually.
You're not talking to me anymore.
All right.
But the movie show is next week. Yes, that's clarified. That's confirmed. It is next
Thanks,
week. So you're very welcome. But I didn't say that. Mr. Dickinson made me say that over the earpiece. But anyway, check out the movie show next week. And for myself, for Rennie, and for Jim, and for Brian, who's in our nation's capital dodging bullets, this is the Pro Wrestling Review, and we'll see you next week.